start immediately. Thank you. Thank you, Helena. So welcome and good morning again. And we are continuing in our lessons about Brachot. Last time we had more introduction in general. Today will be very, very practical. The topic today is what we call Birkot hanehenin, the blessings of things that we enjoy, which basically covered all the eating and smell. Yeah, eating and smelling. I don't know why the word smell doesn't sit. It's in general, my English is very. It's much harder for me in English since I moved to Denmark. So the three languages mixed too much. So I hope you'll. I'll get your forgiveness to that and your tolerance. Good. So we'll continue from our main source comes from Masechet Brachot very naturally, the tractate that talks about the Brachot. If Helena, can I ask you to open the source sheet? You're so good. Yes, Birkot hanehenin. We start from the Mishnah. Can I see any volunteers to read? If I don't see volunteer, good. Dita, you're welcome.
How does one recite blessings for fruits? On fruits growing on a tree, one says, who created the fruit of the tree except for wine? On wine, one says, who created the fruit of the wine? On fruits growing from the earth, one says, who created the fruit of the ground? Except for bread, on bread, one says, who brings forth bread from the earth? On vegetables, one says, who created the fruit of the ground? Rabbi Yehuda says, who created various types of herbs?
Yes.
More?
Yes, great. So this is the first Mishnah. It already gives us the framework of the whole principle of Brachot, which is you are trying to find the source where things come from, which is like part also of the argument at the end of the Rabbi Yehuda and the Stam Mishnah and the regular Mishnah, that who created various types of herbs. That doesn't go to the source. It's a discussion about how much the roots are important, and we'll talk about the roots later. The question of how the roots are relevant in that essence. But you can see in general the idea that you're looking on where things come from. The concept of Brachot, we talked a bit about it last time, but I would say that personally for me, this is one of the greatest examples of our way of thinking regarding Brachot. This is one of the things I introduce when I talk to non-Jews about Judaism. Brachot is one of the main things, and I use these examples because it's actually quite weird. The bracha we say. Can you suggest an alternative? Let's see. Can any of you suggest an alternative? What could we have said instead of saying who created the fruit, the fruit of the tree? Yeah, Sophie?
Created the fruit of the earth.
Okay, yeah, we could do something more general instead of doing categories. But what could we do as a complete alternative? Not going to the think out. If you created Brachot, the concept, what would you want? How do you think that should have been done? Yeah, Kathy.
It would be a lot easier to just say Baruch Hashem for everything, you know.
Just saying, Baruch Hashem, without going into the details, what exactly it's about. Thank you, God, so much. Like doing some kind of a gesture. Instead of starting all the debates, and we're going to have discussions today that are very specific. What do you say when this, and what do you do with this? Okay, that's an option. Yeah, Mikkel, you had also an option.
Yeah, instead of creating, which is has nothing to do with, you could say, with us eating, maybe who gave us the fruits, or who gave us permission to eat the fruits, something like that. More directly, what we're thinking. Yeah. Yeah.
So when we say it, we don't acknowledge the idea that we are going to eat it. Yes, we just say Borei Pri Hagan, who created this fruit. We don't say who created this fruit I'm going to eat, or who gave us the permission, as you said, to eat this fruit. So this is also an interesting direction. One is, what do we say? How do we categorize? And the other one, that we don't acknowledge the fact that we're going to eat. We acknowledge the way of its creation. This is very, very clear. Many times to understand what the rabbis, always in my yeshiva, when we studied the Mishnah and Talmud, before we started studying, we had like a discussion. What would we have thought that Mishnah would say without knowing anything about it? It's a way of, I think in general, a way of studying. But I would say something very simple would be, if you want to be specific, you could just say the name of the thing you are going to eat. Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam, who created this apple, or created this. You could just give it the name of what it is, and then you don't go into. Then you don't have to start having a debate when you eat pasta with meatballs. What do you say bracha on the pasta or the meatballs? You'll just say, who gave us pasta and meatballs, who gave us the thing that we're going to eat. Yeah, Rebecca?
Can't you just say the general blessing as well, the shekalot?
Shakol, yes. You're going to the practical. Now I'm talking in theory. You're right that the other option, similar to someone said before here, that Shakol, who created everything, then you don't go into the details. Yes, this is actually one of the options. If you don't know what you're supposed to say, and you can't send a WhatsApp to your rabbi to us, and you don't have Google to write what do you say on which blessing do you do this, then you're supposed to say Shakol, because that's you're on safe side. We'll talk about it later here. So, but this is a practical aspect. But it gives us again a direction about what the Mishnah wanted us to do, and I think that going to this place in the middle, that it's not a general thing. It's very clear that the choice was that we don't do general brachot on everything we eat. So that's a choice that could have been done. Like I would totally understand if the Mishnah just gave us one thing you say whenever you eat, and then you would have said something that Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam, that led us that gave us wonderful things to eat. I don't know, something like that, and then you didn't eat anything else.
Can I just ask something? I guess this is kind of practical as well, but if, say, you have vegetables with bread, would you say a blessing and then
you're jumping to the end of the lesson, where we'll go to the practical thing. So wait with these questions. Now we're starting with a theory. Arad, you want to explain what you wrote in Hebrew?
Yeah. I say that if.
Yes, Arad?
Second, I think that I have.
Oh, well, there's a trouble with it makes a sound. Okay, okay, you say Arad, that if you'll be specific, then there'll be a discussion. How do you say each thing? And that will also be, how is this called and how the other thing is called. You're right in the principle that with Jews, we will always find problems and issues that we can discuss. But I would say that you could have said, and the Mishnah goes through that direction, that when you enjoy things, it's many times a question of what you enjoy. For example, one of the rules that I didn't bring here, that if you eat something you really dislike, you're not supposed to say bracha. If you, for example, when will people make you eat? Let's say not people make you eat. You are going. I had this situation quite a few times that I went to some Arabs who invited me, and they offered me coffee, and I hate coffee, really hate coffee. And but when I go to an Arabic home, I know that if they give you coffee, it's disrespect if you don't drink it. So I drink it, but I hate it. Like I hate the taste. I don't enjoy it any bit. In that situation, you don't say bracha. So it's not a category. The categories are not only a principle. What do you do when you eat? It's also about you and how do you enjoy it. It's an individual thing, and you do have aspects of the individual way you look on the thing you're going to eat. That is part of the halachot, and you could have done it individually, saying bracha is something that you decide how to say. But again, the Mishnah here went to a different direction. Yes, Arad. If you don't enjoy, you don't have to. If you really don't enjoy, like in any sense, then then you're not supposed to say bracha before. Here are first rule, but I brought it for the example to say that the Mishnah do recognize, and Mishnah and the Talmud do recognize the idea that there is an individual aspect in bracha, the way you eat. Is Karina?
Yeah, I just wanted the reason why we say who created the fruit of the wine. The reason why we acknowledge that where it comes from is that because they want us to really appreciate what we're having.
Yeah, I think that this is the direction that I will say that we are trying to look on the process, and this is quite interesting. That when you say Borei Priya Etz, the fruit of the tree, you look on the process where it came from. You don't only say Shakol Niya Bidvoro, everything came from God. You know, you have religious people who have this tendency, like just seeing God everywhere. And the Brachot helps us not to see God, but to see the creation. Like what's the way it's in the world. So not only appreciate the general idea of God, but appreciate the process that it came to. I think that if there was a time that we need Brachot more than ever, it's today. Because today we have no connection to where the things came from. Because if we'll need to say bracha, if you ask kids, where does food come from, they would say from the store. So Borei Priya Etz will be Borei the Pri that we got from Netto. Like everything comes from the shelves of the store, and not. So it's even more crucial today that we look on everything we eat and see the process that it came to, appreciate what lies behind it, something that modern people we really don't do. Lars?
Yes, I thought about like some brachas are not the subjective is not clear. Like in these brachas, it's about the common hagafen. And the common, it's you created the Adam or what it is, but and also in like Asher Yatzar, it's created the fantastic body, but sometimes it's more like my soul or my something about me. So it's a difference. It's not like the subjective activity is not included in the bracha. It's like so that's and why is it sometimes included and sometimes not?
Yeah, I would say what do you put as a question mark? I would take as a Urlaubstein. How do you say Urlaubstein?
Exclamation mark.
Exclamation mark. Yes, because I think that is exactly what the Mishnah. You should look on the different brachot and see when is it needed. When do you need a category? And I think that the idea of categorizing thing that is also very. Today we are doing everything we can not to categorize, right? Everyone can define themselves, and we don't want to. And the idea that there are things that are similar, and there are categories, there are try to watch the world and make general views on it is a positive thing. I want to continue to go to the rules and the details. You understand? I'll add just one thing, that what you saw here very clearly, that the two main creations of the fruit, that when we talk about wine and bread, that are like the highest level, the something that in the Mishnah Talmud time was seen as the most, the best that you can take out of it. It's what we call Bracha Chashuva, an important creation that was it got a blessing of itself. But also with the wine, you didn't say about the wine. You said you watch a continuous of creation. Borei Pri Hagafen. So you don't go all the way which tree Geffen, which no, but you do look on where it came from, on every one. There's so seeing that process, I think that is beautiful to see. Let's go to the second Mishnah. Didi, you want to continue?
I can read.
Yeah, sure. Beata.
If one blessed on the fruit on the tree with who created the fruit on the ground, he fulfilled his obligation. But if he blessed on the fruits on the ground, who created the fruit on the trees, he did not fulfill his obligation. In all cases, if he said, for everything exists by God's words, he fulfilled his obligation.
Yeah, so this last one is the she'akol that was named before. It's quite simple. If you eat someone else want to explain? It is so simple. Beatrice, do you want to try to explain? Give an example?
I'd rather get help.
Yeah, so how will this be in practice? Let's talk about a situation. How does this look in practice?
So if one blessed on the fruit of the tree who created fruit, will he fulfill his obligation?
If we took an apple, for example, what is the blessing of an apple?
Then it's who created the fruit on the ground, right?
No, so the original is a borei pri ha'etz, the tree. So the apple grows on the tree, so you say borei pri ha'etz. And then if in this Mishnah situation, you're right, if you say borei pri ha'adama, created the fruit of the ground, is it good enough?
But if he doesn't, it's good enough if he blessed, but should he bless the tree then, or are you gonna bless the fruit?
You're supposed to bless a tree, but let's say you made a mistake and you said adama.
Yeah.
The Mishnah here comes and says, is it good enough to say instead of the tree, saying the ground?
No, then he did not fulfill his obligation.
No, so the Mishnah says, if it's a fruit from the tree, it is good enough.
Yeah.
Because the tree comes from the ground.
Exactly.
So when you say on something that the ground is part of the process, then it's fine. But if you do the opposite, if you take a fruit of the ground that does not come from a tree and say borei pri ha'etz, then it's not good enough. It has to be accurate. What you acknowledge, the fact that you talk about has to be right. If it's something wrong, then it's you haven't said the proper bracha. So the bracha has to be right. And that's why, as it was said here before, if you say she'akol niya bidvaro, that everything exists by God's word, then you're always right, because that's right regardless on which level of creation it is, if it's a fruit, a vegetable, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then we come to a again more complicated thing. Yeah, you want to continue reading?
On a thing which does not grow from the earth, say, for everything.
She'akol.
On vinegar and on unripe fruits and on the locust, say for everything. On milk and on cheese and on eggs, says for everything. Rabbi Yehuda says anything which is a cursed species should not be blessed upon.
Yes, and here comes exactly what we talked about before, that there are things that you don't say a blessing at all. So they come and say that you say she'akol on anything that does not grow from the earth, which is, for example, meat, even the first one, which thing that in old ages that you ate didn't grow from the earth, that's only meat and chicken, and milk, like think that products of the living world. But they also have another category on vinegar and unripe fruit, like thing that evolved and is not, it's not connected anymore to the source where it comes from, or because it came through a process that's disconnected. Then it also had this category of she'akol. And Rabbi Yehuda adds something, anything which is cursed species. I know about you, but I, as a child, always used to taste different kinds of leaves. It's a very unhealthy thing to do. But it tastes terrible. You're not supposed to. It's nothing that you're supposed to eat. It's not. Then you're not supposed to say a blessing on it. Yes, Michael?
Yeah, I just go back to B. If I understand it correctly, that if you say she'akol, it's always okay. But is it a case of you made a mistake, or you can say I don't want to go into all this to learn what, so I always say she'akol on everything.
No, you're not supposed. You're supposed to check.
Yeah.
If you said she'akol by mistake, then you did fulfill your obligation. This is what the Mishnah says. It's like Yetzata yedei chova. You did what you're supposed to. You're not supposed to say another bracha because you said something that is correct. Like the idea of doing this reflection on the fruits. This is something that the rabbis evolved, but it's not the main thing. The main thing is just the idea of asking permission to eat, as we talked about last week. That's the main idea of Brachot. The idea of the reflection, understanding the world, and all of that, that's a layer that the rabbis added that is an extra layer. Also, the first one, also the idea of blessing is also from the Rabbanan, as we talked. It's also from the rabbis, but this is like a deeper thing. If you didn't do it, you still did enough. But if you've said something wrong, then you ruined. That's why. So it's better to say something general than specific if you're going to do it wrong. But again, as you said, you don't say it. If you have to say it, you have to find the right bracha if you can. And today we have no excuses because Google gives us. We are only 30 seconds from the right answer, so we can always. And now going to Google is not something I usually recommend because you have to understand who writes and why and such. But on very simple matters, for example, like this one, which bracha do you say on rice or on, I don't know, if you're suddenly in a situation that you are not sure, usually it would be very easy to find an answer. If you write like the name of a specific food, that you can use Google I think maybe once we need a whole shiur of it. How do you use Google on halachic questions? That should be a whole different shiur, very relevant for today. Yes, Sarah?
Yeah, I just want to make sure when I make the salad and I do the barach with the hadam, do I also put vinegar and olive oil, which is that a part of the cursed species? And do I then have to say more than that?
No, they're not cursed species. Cursed species are things that you don't say a blessing. Vinegar
Yeah,
and
okay.
such, they were shakol. We'll go into what happens in mixing later on. Okay, so now we're only in the category. Then we'll see how it goes when we mix them together.
Can I ask just if
Yes.
the cursed stuff? It sounds like cursed. It sounds more than it's just something that you shouldn't eat. Is it also like, for example, what does cursed mean in this context?
Cursed in this sense means, for example, you have portions that people drank because they had to, out of some kind of a health, and it's like.
You mean poison?
No. I would say also things that were supposed to be good for them, but it was like completely disgusting. That could be a situation like that when they took leaf that you're not supposed to eat and created some kind of a portion out of it. It's more like that.
It's not like if you by mistake eat meat that is treife or something like that.
No, that's something else.
That's something else. Could it be medicine to eat if you take medicine and it's not for eating, but it's you eat it, but it's not for
yeah, and it tastes terribly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any nutrition.
No, it's just.
It doesn't have any advantage for the nutrition and not and it's not pleasant. Then that's kind of something that is cursed. But it's not spiritually cursed. But I would say that regarding smelling, when you're supposed to say bracha or borei min samim, when you smell things that are, for example, the thing that ktoret, I have no idea how to what's its name in Danish or
Røgelse.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Scent.
Which is which had many people can put it at the home for having nice. There's many spiritual people can put it at the home, but if you go into I would say a temple in India, where it's a discussion if it's allowed at all, but leave this question aside. But the Royal says the Ktoret is definitely something that's connected to worshiping. Then you're not supposed to say bracha on that because it's connected to worship of idols, and so you're not allowed to say bracha even though you enjoy it. You're not supposed to enjoy it. So that's an example maybe to the more spiritual aspect that you said, like something that is cursed, that you're not supposed to. So that may be the closest. But let's continue. We have a lot of practical things that we need to go through, and I want to make sure that. Yes, someone else want to read? Yeah, Rebecca.
Is it D? Yeah.
Yes.
If one has before him many different species, Rabbi Yehuda says, if there is among them one of the 7 species, bless on that one. But the sages say, bless on whichever he desires.
Okay, so here's a very simple question of what comes first. If you have different fruits in front of you, is there something you need to say to take first? Why do we say bracha before? Do you need to take something? Either one that is more important than others.
Bread.
Rabbi Yehuda comes and says, if there's one of the 7 species, what are the 7 species? Yeah, any of you?
Wheat, druer, what do you say? Grapes, figs, granite.
Yes, but where does it come from?
Where does it come from?
What is this category of the 7 species? I'm not saying what are they in specific, but where does this category come from?
Adama.
Femte
Yeah.
Mosebog.
Yes, Miguel?
Devarim, Sefer Devarim.
Yes, it comes from in the Torah. It said these are the 7 species that the land of Israel is blessed with. There's specific 7 species that Israel is particularly blessed with, and we know until today there are good growings in Israel, and we'll go through which ones they are maybe later. So Rabbi Yehuda says if you have one of these special 7 species, Shivat HaMinim, then you say a blessing on them first and only then on others. The rabbis disagree with Rabbi Yehuda and say bless on whichever he desires. This means the most important thing is if you will take something you like less, you'll be focused on what you want, and not you're supposed to start with what your heart desires, and not rule someone else who tells you what's more important. What's more important, it depends on you, because we have different tastes, and as we all learn, we're not. You can't argue about a matter of taste. People have different opinions. So here you can again see how, regarding blessing, you do consider the personal view as relevant. I would say that the Gemara actually goes and takes Rabbi Yehuda's direction more, and traditionally today we follow the taking the 7 species first, and we even have a specific rule within it that comes in Talmud Brachot. So maybe let's look down and just to see what the ruling goes until today. So from Talmud Brachot, it brings the verse from Dvarim, from the Deuteronomy. So you can read from as Rav Yosef. Yes? Who wants to read? Karina?
Yeah. Is it piece G?
Yeah, just where it says as Rav Yosef.
No, as Rav Yosef and some say Rabbi Yitzhak said, each precedes the others in this verse, takes precedence over the others in terms of blessing as well, as it is stated, a land of wheat and barley, wines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey.
Yeah, this is the phrase from Deuteronomy. The question that arises is, what do you do when you have 2 of these? So which one do you say first if you have both olives and grapes? So what comes first?
Grapes,
Why grapes?
because it's associated with the wine.
No, but the same the grapes, not the wine. If you
No,
only
I know,
have
but it's the source of the wine.
yeah, so no,
And
so
like
no,
wheat comes for grapes because that's the source for the bread.
okay. So the reason I you can see that I wrote land with yellow. Yeah, can you see that? So the rule is the fruit that is closest to the word land. Eretz. So olive comes right after the word land. So olives come actually before grapes, because the grapes are like the 3rd, while olive is only 1 from the word land. The word land comes twice in this verse. So Eretz chita u'seora, v'gefen v'tena v'rimon, Eretz zeit shemen u'dvash.
What do you do if you have, for example, honey and grapes? I mean, they're both like equally away from land.
Yeah, honey is it means tmarim.
Dates.
Dates, yes. So dates is 2 from. You have olive oil. Olive oil is 1. It's olives, and honey is dates. It's 2 from land. And when you have things that are from wheat and barley, usually it's not just plain fruit. I don't know about you, but I don't just mash wheat and barley. Usually it's in the form of bread or a cake, and then it becomes more important regardless, because it's a more important blessing, and that's why they will always have precedence, and that's why you don't have a problem, because wheat and barley will be first whenever they are there, and then you have olive number as 1, date 2, grape 3, figs 4, and pomegranates 5. So that will be the order. Okay, it's not very critical. Let's say, as you saw in the Mishnah, the opinions of rabbis is that it's not. You didn't ruin too much if you said a blessing on the wrong food first. But the idea is that it's good to learn it, and something also to brag at when you come to a dinner and you want to show off how much you know. Then you can say, no, we say bracha on this first because it's from the 7 species. Yes. But it's good to put as part of a. Good. Let's go. Let's continue. Wow, it's the time's flying. We'll go back to E. Yes.
Should I continue?
You're welcome.
One who recited a blessing over the wine before the meal is exempted the wine after the meal. One who recited a blessing over the appetizers before the meal is exempted the appetizers after the meal. One who recited a blessing over the bread exempted the appetizers. Over the appetizers did not exempt the bread. Beit Shammai say he did not exempt even a cooked dish.
Yeah. So the situation here is, what do we do in dinners? Usually we don't, in our very rich society, we don't eat just one thing. We eat quite a lot of things, and when we sit to dinner, especially, then you have a whole ceremony. Many times we'll have, for example, it says here, blessing over wine before the meal. Well, I can make it similar to maybe serving, say, a glass of wine just before the starters, right? When we gather, sometimes they can serve some wine in the living room, or if we go to an event, so you have drinks first and then sitting to the table. So when you say bracha, that is before the meal, the bracha of the wine will continue into the meal, and say everything. When you said a bracha on one thing, then also the other one that will come later will be under the same bracha. You don't have to say it every time again. You say it once in a meal. But then come at the end, another option. The question is, when you say a bracha on bread, and when you say bracha on bread, you exempt the appetizers too. You exempt also things that comes along the bread that are not bread. That is a very unique thing. So when we say today, usually we sit to dinner on Shabbat. We start with kiddush, say a blessing over the challah, the bread, but then we don't say bracha on every dish we had on the table, because it was part of the bracha of hamotzi that is the most important thing. So the lechem represents the whole meal many times. Actually, in the Torah, the word lechem can also mean meal, and not only bread. So in that way, this is part of it, but the vice versa, it doesn't go. You can't say, when you say bless an appetizer, it doesn't cover bread as well. And Beit Shammai adds, it doesn't even cover a cooked dish. So you have to separate every one of them and say bracha, while others will say that it does cover a few in one go.
But what's with the dessert?
Ooh, the dessert is
unknown.
Is another category. The question is if the dessert part of the meal or not. The discussion with dessert is, does it come to enjoy, or does it come to be full, to met, saver. And so and that's why they actually accept the dessert if it's like if it's an essential part of the eating, then you won't say a new blessing. But if it's very clearly separated and it comes only to enjoyment, then you're supposed to say bracha for that separately. And many times we would say also when you have a whole fruit, like a complete whole fruit, that you're supposed to say bracha on that too. So, for example, I know people serve, with child many times, that people serve the eshkolit. Like you could get a, how's it called, eshkolit?
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit? Yeah, grapefruit. Yes, you serve the whole grapefruit for first course. Then you actually say a different blessing on that. When you get like a whole fruit, then that will be a blessing. Yes, Karina?
No, I just wondered, does this mean that if you do the blessing on the wine before the meal, then you don't bless every bottle of wine you open during the
exactly
the meal? Okay.
Yeah.
Isn't there time, some kind of time? I for example, at the work, or if I do the Shia call when I drink coffee, then I can drink some cups of coffee, but there's a time limit, isn't it?
No,
where I have to say it again.
It's a time limit. It's a dinner limit. If it's part of one dinner, then it's connected. But if it's not, if for example you go to the coffee at work, there are people who drink 5, 6, 7 cups of coffee. They are not connected to each other because every cup stand for itself. It's
a new Shia call for every cup.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
It's not part of one meal, even though it's the same. Only if it's as a part of a meal, then it's or if you drink 2 in a row, like you sit at a coffee table and have coffees and some cookies, and you take another glass, then yes, that's every one of them. Okay, let's continue. Another aspect that is relevant, especially for today.
Yeah, but can I just ask? I thought it said in the papers we were to read that you don't have to say baruch over hot drinks because you don't drink them in one. Because you take small sips.
I don't remember.
Did I misunderstand that?
I don't know. Hot drinks I needed to, but as far as I know, I'll look into it.
I'll find it. Okay.
Okay, good. Thanks. We'll take. Maybe I'll learn something new. That maybe I don't know these rules because I don't drink hot drinks. And when someone offers me tea, I say, "Am I sick?" So for me, it's okay. So Rebecca, so you probably know better than me. I really it's not that's a good example. When something is not part of your routine, you don't even think about it. Like it's not. But I don't remember. I saw something about maybe because it's too small amount. Yes, Karina.
Yeah. Do we bless a glass of water, for instance?
Yes. Yes.
The thing with the hot drinks is that you don't say something after, but you do something before.
Ah, okay.
That's what they're saying. They're just saying that it's sort of like because you're sipping it slowly, you won't say something after, but you will say something before. That's what it says in the book.
Thank you, Helena. That's a very good, very important distinction, because I didn't remember anything that you're allowed to put in your mouth without saying a bracha. The one thing that you don't say bracha, like except the thing that you don't enjoy. But for example, if you choose something for a baby, I know it sounds disgusting. I'm sorry, but that might happen. So doing something soft, but you're not eating it, then you're not supposed to say bracha. This is like or if only you like sip taste when you cook something and you're not going to eat it. If you like, then there are discussions what exactly if you do swallow it, is it then or not? But if you're like only tasting the something you cook to make sure that you put the right species. Species colorio. Then it's
spices.
Yeah, spices. Thank you. Spices. I knew spices. Well, so if you want to make sure it's in, then maybe you don't say it. But when you drink or eat or something, you say bracha whenever. Yes. Yes, in mastic too. Arad, also if you eat a chewing gum, because the taste goes in, even though you'll throw the chewing gum itself, you do get the taste in, and you do say bracha on chewing gum. There are options. There are people who say before Yom Kippur that eating a gum, if you take completely the taste out of the gum, theoretically there are some who would say that you're allowed to chew it on Yom Kippur. If it doesn't have any taste anymore, and then you won't say a bracha, but it's not, you're not supposed to do it, so just don't. And it also sounds disgusting. Yes. Let's continue.
Can I come with something?
Yes.
Yeah, where I'm from, or in Babylonia, in Talmudic time, they have. I just remember something they told me. They said if you make the bread from home, then the bread is made by a Jewish person. Then
that will lead to kosher. Now we are focusing on Brachot, not on the. So let's put this aside. The question of that kosher, we'll talk another time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that will be a long session about that. Do you have to always say a blessing in Hebrew? Oh, good. So let's thank you, Rebecca. It's not an odd question. It's a very good question. Let's go down in the sources, Helena. Here. Now, the reason I want to take is from Shulchan Aruch here, or Chaim 206. Rebecca, so you can read. Come and answer yourself. I think I brought it here, yeah.
Sorry, I'm here. So number 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see. All of these blessings on food and beverages need to not interrupt between blessing and eating or drinking. And one needs to make the blessings audible. And if one does not make it audible, one has to fulfill one's obligation.
One has fulfilled.
One
Even
has
though you didn't do it. You're supposed
Yeah.
to do it, but if you didn't, then you still fulfilled your obligation.
Okay.
Yotzei yedei chova, that's a halachic word that's good to learn. Like letzet yedei chova, you did you fulfilled your obligation.
So, yeah, okay. So as long as the words depart from one's lips and the blessings can be spoken in any language, and one should not bless nakedly until one covers one's genitalia.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that was a bit bold to read.
Yeah, and you should say thank you that I wiped the last part of this Shulchan Aruch. If you want to look, you're welcome, because it goes very specific to the details of the naked and differences between men and women. If you want, you can see there. But here are the very clear principles, including your question.
Yeah.
And the blessing can be spoken in any language. It's preferable to do it in Hebrew. Learn it, but studying it and say it also in other languages is good enough. There are very few things in Judaism where when it is an obligation to say it only in Hebrew. Even prayer is not doesn't have to be in Hebrew. You can say it in any language, but it's important to learn it. So it's good to, I know, at some way find maybe a mix of both. Saying parts in Hebrew to practice it and learn it, and also say it in Danish, Norwegian, Swedish, Finnish, or whatever you want to also to understand, which is also important. But this is also regarding Brachot. So you're allowed to say in any tongue, but it's better to learn it and then say it in Hebrew, because then it will be part of what you are. And you can also see the rules. That let's also just Rebecca read 4.
Yeah. Everything upon which one blesses, to eat something or to smell something or to drink something, requires grasping the object with one's right hand when one blesses.
Yeah, so you're supposed to be very specific. Grab the thing you're supposed to eat in your hand and say a bracha. That you can see. That's what you do when you do borei pri hagafen, right? You kiddush, we hold the cup. When we say bracha the hamotzi, we lift the bread. And the thing with the right side, it's like in general in Judaism that you go to the right, but you also see the aspect that you're not supposed to interrupt between the blessing and the eating. It's very crucial that they are connected directly. Don't say in bracha and then start talking to someone else before you ate. Then you didn't fulfill. So you have to,
I've already experienced this at shul.
Yeah, so yeah, you
people
stand doing the
not
bracha and
cooking.
then someone, yeah. So it's very important here, the focus, and also doing it audible. That you're supposed to do it in a way that you sound it out loud. Of course, were asked last week. Someone asked what about the work, and so then you can say it also silently in your head if you're at a place that you don't want people to think you're crazy because you start to mumble before you eat something. That is understandable, but yeah, and in any language, and of course also not to say it naked. And these are all blessings, so that is relevant. For example, blessing that when you went to the toilet, and the blessing Asher Yatzar, then you don't say it naked. So it's this is like an example. Yes, Karina.
Well, another question, and maybe it's stupid because maybe we covered it already, but I just wondered if you have, for instance, when you're eating lunch at your work and you're given a plate with salad and bread and meat, do you then bless?
When you get meat at work, you're probably not supposed to eat it.
Okay, but when you get
unless you work in a Jewish community or something.
Okay. Okay, I get a plate with bread and salad and vegetables. Do I then bless all of the things individually, or do I just like cover the meal or the plate?
Yeah, so that is exactly what it goes very specific to the different things. So you can definitely say bracha on every one of them, or you can say bracha on the most important that covers the rest. The main question is, I would say the question is, are they connected or not? Let's take an example. You have pasta, you have schnitzel, and you have salad.
Yeah.
Then you're actually supposed to say which brachot. You're supposed to say bracha for each one of them, because every one of them stands aside. Like every one of them is they don't relate to each other. They're not a supplement. Like you eat the schnitzel alone, you eat the pasta alone, and you eat the salad alone. Right? Where every one of them is very separated. But if you eat the bolognese with pasta, then it's not. Then they're not separated, right? There are, and then the question will be, what is the supplement? What is the main food you eat, and what is the supplement? What comes to help the other one? So, for example, when you eat chips with ketchup, it's very clear that you say the bracha for the chips and not for the ketchup. Or salad with vinegar, that someone said before. That you don't. The vinegar is not. The vinegar is there to help the salad, but the salad is the thing you eat. So it's very important. The question of the main food is the most important. We actually had it. If you go back to the Mishnah, Helena. No, I thought that we had the Mishnah. Here, yeah, the G's, the last one. If they brought salted before him to eat first and bread with it, it means salted bread and bread. Bread that is already with taste. Bread that in old time wasn't with taste like we have today. That's why they used to add salt as we do today, that we add salt to the bread, is because in old time the bread was much more with less taste. Then he recites a blessing over the salted and exempts the bread, because this is the best version. But this is a principle, and this is very important. That already then in the Mishnah it says, this is a principle. Any food that is primary and a secondary food is with it, one recites a blessing over the primary and exempts the secondary. That, like when the secondary is part of the primary, then the primary covered the other ones. But if we have things that are completely individual and everyone stands for itself, then you can say in bracha on all of them. If you have bread, I have my rabbi in one of my rabbis in Israel, Rav Jair Binun, he said that you always have to have bread in every meal, because people tended not to have bread in the meal for not saying Birkat HaMazon, the long one afterwards. And he said, but the idea was supposed to say Birkat HaMazon. You said Birkat HaMazon only on bread because you always had bread in every dinner. Like there wasn't such a thing that you didn't have. We'll talk about Birkat HaMazon next time. But the bread was supposed to be the main food. That is not the way we eat today. Today many times we eat without bread, and that makes a change regarding how much things are exempt each other. But if we go back to that example of the different things, yes, you say in pasta, schnitzel, and salad, you say three blessings. You say borei minei mezonot on the pasta. You say for the salad, you say borei pri adama, and for the schnitzel, you say shakon yabidvon. So you take every one of them separately. But and then there'll be situation of then you'll have situation where you're not sure what is the main thing. For example, if you have rice with linsa, lentils, yes, rice and lentils. What will be when it's made together completely? Yes, what is the main thing? Rice will be, which bracha do you say in rice?
Mezonot.
Mezonot, yes, which is unique, because even though it's not one of the 5 grains, you do say mezonot. But the lentils are adama. So if you have more lentils than rice, and you say adama. If you have more rice than lentils, you say mezonot. It depends on the amount. What is the main part of it? But it's many times it can be a question. What is the main part? This is what we bought, especially with the patababi chisnin that we won't come through. Now the last source here, I'm not going to read it, but it's very important to, if you need to have a rule, Helene, can you go down to the very end? I just made a list that maybe you need to have like hanged on the fridge to practice. What is like the main category? Like bread, wine, grape juice, baked goods, and it can also be cooked, like that's like we said, pasta and rice and such. Fruits, vegetables, and shakol. What are the different categories? It's good to practice it at home. Put it in on the fridge and try to do it continuously. So we're finished for today. We'll see you again next week we will talk about if you have any questions. So bring them along, and we can start with answering a few of the questions from today, and we'll continue with the Birkat Hamazon. There's a question here. Can we have this lecture sent along with the lecture from last week? Yes. Oh yeah, ik God be at minute per Zoom. Oh, the Word document. Yes. Well, I will say yes. I will send both the source sheets and the shiurim.
And for the books, how do we do? Do we send a mail and say that we would
But
like to have it?
you need to come here and fetch them. It's
Yeah.